Hi, this is Jim Ziegler, and this is the Dog Pound. I still need music. Okay, guys, we got a spectacular show for you today. We're going to talk about subprime. Delinquencies are at all time records, defaults are soon to follow.
Who's
We've
surprised by
been
that?
burying people in these cars long enough. 10,000 over sticker, it's going to come back now to haunt us. And we're going to have to work deals like we've never worked deals before. Now, in the day, subprime customers are bogues, drecks, roaches, credit criminals, get me dones. We had all those derogatory slang words, but the truth of the matter is they're customers. And we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about how to put these deals together. And I've got two of the foremost experts in the known universe.
Facts.
If they do subprime on other planets, baby, we got it covered.
Watch out, Mark.
I've got and subprime is his middle name. Fred Subprime Hero Lennartz.
What's
Hello,
up?
Fred.
What's going on? What's going on, Jim? Alpha Dawg. What's going on, ladies? What's going on, Max? Happy to be here. I'm happy to share this guy here, this Matt Damos, man. He's a phenomenal car guy, the best that I've ever worked with in my life.
Matt Damos, I've been wanting to meet him for years, ever since I saw the Bourne Identity. Wait, Matt Damos. Oh,
Damos.
Different guy.
You're not Matt Damon.
Right.
Allegedly.
Oh, shit. I thought I booked somebody else. Okay. Matt, tell us who you are.
So my name is Matt Damos. I'm a dealer in Kentucky. My dealership's actually in Radcliffe, Kentucky, which is right outside of Fort Knox. I've been doing subprime finance, specializing in subprime finance since 1997. Prior to that, I was a U.S. Army soldier. So, I did the dealership thing for a little while. I started a staffed event company. That went on for about 12 years. Sold that company and then came to settle down in a dealership in my hometown. So I've been there since.
Fantastic. Are you successful?
Yes, we are successful. Yes.
Give me a testimonial on that, Fred.
Wow, testimonial for sure. This gentleman right here, I've seen him do amazing things. He's went from taking a store that was barely even blimping on the radar to being the #1 independent group in the state of Kentucky, month after month, year after year, date after date. I'm telling you, this guy teaches people how to motivate, teaches people so many things that are amazing. I've never seen a guy at a desk, and I got to tell you this. You can go there. He'll ask you about 5-6 questions. And from those answers, if you're honest with him, he can tell you how to close that customer just like that. Never even going out and shaking hands with them. This is how brilliant this guy is. And he's phenomenal. And that's not even what he does best. So, man, great car guy. You guys should be excited to have him on the show.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us.
Subprime financing. I wore my gold chain. Okay.
That's right.
Well, we got 3 brilliant women on the broadcast today, and I always talk about brilliant women, brilliant persons. One of my favorite people in the world. She keeps Max stable. April Simmons.
Hey, how are we doing today? I'm actually really, really excited. I brought my notebooks. I can take notes from Matt because I think after our conversations as of late, this area is just going to continue to grow and get really, really big. So being prepared right now for what's coming is what it's all about. So I'm excited for today.
Fantastic. And the queen of BDC, one of my favorite people in the universe, Bobby Heron.
Well, hello. I know you met your favorite, but Debbie comes first, so I'll take a second.
Well, I still got Jennifer in the mix,
We're like the same. It counts. We share.
Yeah, we have the same thing.
This whole thing.
And I've always said one of the most brilliant people in the car business. She's held every position, every executive position in a car dealership. Jennifer Briggs.
Hey everyone. I think that after last week's show where Max was wishing for the recession, to hurry up and come. I think this is the perfect topic to follow it up because I was thinking about it and I was like, I opened my first buy here, pay here lot on the heels of the last recession. We scooped up some folks from the mortgage industry and got a super cheap building and started a buy here, pay here as part of our group. I mean, we couldn't compete with the other big ones in town that had like 23 buy here, pay here. Wait, wrong way. But good follow-up to last week. So if you guys were with us, or if you didn't, go back and watch last week's and then rewatch this one too.
And direct from Moscow, Russia.
Trying to get out, guys. He's on the right side of this, okay?
You're still in Spain today, aren't you, Max?
I am, but I'm back on Saturday.
Okay, you coming back to the States?
Yep.
I hear they're going to meet you at the airport and handcuff you.
Possible.
Jennifer and I paid somebody to do it. It's going to be a great time. We'll bring your own music.
I mean, I had to
finance.
I had to pay extra for the handcuffs.
Yes.
No, I got you covered. I owed you one.
Fred Lennartz, why do we need subprime finance, Fred?
Why do we need subprime finance? Oh, wow.
Because it's America.
Yeah, and exactly. And what we as people and the economy and the way it's going and how spending has been and the way that we ask customers and the average human to live beyond their means, subprime credit's just going to keep getting worse, especially as things keep going up and money just stays the same inside households, right? So, but they're not bad people. So that's the thing. Maybe they're not educated. Maybe they've made some mistakes because of people have shown them the wrong way and they assume things that were incorrect. But at the end of the day, it's a great group of people that actually need help, that actually need vehicles.
Right?
They're the ones who,
life
right? They're the ones who are out there, doing the jobs that half of us don't want to do, but they got to get there, and we got to help them get there. So how do we do that? We got to educate, empower, and encourage all of them. So we got to do those things. So, subprime is super needed in this world, and I think that if we can all jump on board and really help those people out, we can really make a change in this world, and people might get more educated. The next generation might be less susceptible to having subprime credit, and that's our jobs as adults, as people, as community members, as car guys and car gals that are helping people. We need to do that, and we need to show them how. And that's something that's super important that I know Matt always taught me how to do with my customers and how to really impact them and not just sell them one vehicle, but sell them their second one at a better interest rate. Right.
Well, because the subprime customers are more loyal. And we talked about that last week, how, nobody is optimizing or training towards loyalty and retention because of all the names that Jim was talking about. Most dealerships are going to broom someone that they pre-qualify with that credit, not realizing it's a bigger gross where there's a higher risk, there's a bigger reward. And if you do treat those customers the right way, they then become a loyal person who's spreading your branding and bringing you other customers because you treated them like a real human and not like a bug.
Most people in this world are one decision away from being a subprime customer themselves. One decision away.
Let me tell you a story a second before I get to Matt. When in the 90s, when I was consulting the minority auto dealers program, Ford Motor Company had 300 black dealers, and I had the consulting contract. And one of the dealers was in Baltimore, Maryland. And there was a woman that worked for him named Shirley Tabb. Now, Shirley Tabb was the #1 salesperson at the dealership. And she actually paid for herself to attend my F&I school. And I was sort of impressed by that. And I went to the dealership, and she was dealing strictly with subprime finance before there was anything we call subprime finance. And when she would bring the customers in, she had her own finance sources. And when she would bring the customers in, that car had velvet theater ropes around it. Picture this. She would had a champagne bucket with 3 glasses in the trunk and ice, and a guy with a top hat and a tuxedo would deliver their keys on a pillow.
I love that.
That's cute.
I mean, so this is just set off of what Fred was just talking about. She didn't treat him like any other customer. She treated them like royalty and took a picture of them with a pillow, with a champagne, with the keys, and the guy with the tuxedo, and made a calendar out of it for him.
What do you think
And you
happened
talk
there?
about royalty. Shirley Tablet was phenomenal.
That's
Every
how you ask
call-
for referrals, people. That's the right way to do it.
They don't even, you don't have to ask for them. She's sending everybody
yeah.
to you.
Mhm.
That's a different experience. And that's something
Okay,
that
Matt Damos, the Shirley Tab experience. How many of these people are actually repairing their credit and getting well?
So, it's kind of hard to determine that because when people are in the dealership, normally, similar to what we were talking about earlier, you're going to go through an interview, kind of figure out, who's in front of you. At that point, everyone is trying to do the right thing. Every customer is trying to do the right thing. This happened to me. I'm wanting to repair my credit, and a lot of times it does really actually happen. But the truth of the matter is that I don't think that a ton of people come in with the intention of, look, I'll take whatever car because I only want to reestablish my credit.
Right.
I think that people are there for mainly transportation, because they have a transportation problem. And that's how we treat everybody. It used to be when I first got in, I used to use Promax, and Promax was brand new to me. It might have been brand new, period.
Probably.
Was this 47 years ago? Because that's about how old their technology is still.
Yeah.
I was instrumental in creating Promax with John Palmer.
Is that right?
That was all my stuff, and that was 1989.
Okay.
That was the last update.
So this was around 97, and I used to, I didn't know anything. I had sold cars for 6 months my entire life, and was thrown into this position, and I didn't want to turn it down. So Promax really kind of helped me out as far as all my inventory is in there. You could plug in the types of approvals.
Are you still using Promax?
I do not use Promax now.
Okay.
I inherited a different program that I actually don't use either. But it would be one of those, you plug it in and then you've got like, it'll print out like every vehicle in your inventory, what the payment is, what the gross profit is. I would just delete the gross profit, cut off, the top of the page, and just have the top 5 profit makers, hand that to a salesperson with the payments, say, just go land them on this, and these are the payments. And I don't do that anymore. I try not to necessarily car people down. I let them car themselves down. I just make sure that the inventory that I have is conducive to that type of customer. So
say that one more time, Matt. Say that one more time.
That's important.
Yeah, I don't like the stuff something down someone's throat. Here's the bottom line is that ACVs are higher than they've ever been, at least since I've been in the business. So the customer that, $350 payments for subprime, $450, even $400 payments for subprime are pretty much gone. So if you're going to do, and I'm talking about conventional subprime, not buy here, pay here.
Right.
So if you're going to do that, and these customers though, they still want to be at that $350, $400 payment. So if you're going to convince them to do, a $550 or $600 or $700 payment, then it's a lot easier to close somebody on something that they feel like that they selected. So I always send them out and let them pick out their top 3. The salesperson is going to explain to them, hey, we're going to go out. I'm going to have you pick out, your 3 favorite vehicles on the lot. If we can make any of those work for your credit situation, we're going to. If not, then we're at least going to show you a vehicle or 2 that the bank is going to approve you for.
Right.
Yeah. And the key there is stock for your market, people.
Right.
Stock for your market.
Yeah, it's huge because the ACVs are higher. That also puts us in an LTV problem when it comes to getting these customers purchased. So, and it is incredibly important. Subprime is harder, guys. Listen, we're not going to sugarcoat any of this for you. It takes longer to nurture that customer. It requires more from a paperwork standpoint, but the profitability is worth it if you execute on it the right way. But that has to start with how you stock your lot.
Yes.
You're not going
Okay, we're gonna get to that. You're way ahead of us.
I'm always way ahead of everybody.
You know what? Jennifer, you're
You're
100%
way
on
ahead
that.
of us.
That's my best
Get
friend.
into inventory.
You got to have
is
solution
everything.
vehicles. You got to have them.
You've got to have vehicles conducive to special finance,
100%.
and that is a very competitive market. I've been telling mainstream dealers to keep those units, which I sure pissed off a lot of the independents, but backlot cars are more profitable. If a car is sold 5 times in a lifetime, the last dealer that sold it made more money than the previous 4 put together.
I believe that so much.
Yeah.
And it really is, and we get deep into inventory. We could talk about the types of vehicles, but I think we all know it's the math that makes sense on it, but you have to have specialized training for your sales pros, or they're not going to be able to handle it anyway. Because people will come in wanting that fancy dancy, fully loaded vehicle, 4-wheel drive, the whole Mac, right? But the thing is that they're not going to be able to get all that. So we can't tell them you can't. We got to show them what we can do. And like what Matt says, he allows them to go out and pick out those options. And what that does, it lets them feel like, hey, at least I was part of the process, not just thrown into a process. And that's like throwing out a red carpet as best that you can for these customers, right? Hey, listen, I got great news for you. And that's something that he taught me to say to every customer. And he knows I go in dancing when I'm taking, I'm like, I'll come in spinning for my customers. Like, hey, great news. And it could be the most wildest thing. But when I bring in that energy, they lift up with that, right? They feel better, so we have to treat everybody good, not like that we're going to put baby in the corner, because nobody likes to put baby in the corner, right? So we got to make sure that we have them out, we're showing them off. It's truth. I know I'm using a crazy reference there, but it's truth. Who hate it? It sucks.
Dirty dancing on a Tuesday.
Well, it's maintaining control. Right. But letting the customer feel like they're in control, we're selecting, just like Matt said. He says he gives them, the top 5 options. If you could pick 3 and we can get you done on 1, but he still picked the 5, right? We're in control, but making them feel that's just sales,
right?
Period.
The other thing to remember is that, through Q2 of this year, only 44% of car buyers had a 680 plus credit score. So, 56% of people are either near prime or subprime, and it's going to continue to trend lower. Or the subprime number is going to continue to climb because inflation, obviously, it's just basic
inflation and recessions on us. We are in a recession.
Right. So even people with decent credit, people that are normally bill payers, are having to make choices on what they're going to pay. So, even if they're paying their car on time, it still doesn't necessarily keep them as a prime buyer. Because if they're not paying their credit card, their score is going to drop and they're going to fall into near prime or subprime. So, I would advise every dealer to, pay a lot of attention to this and figure out a way, to incorporate subprime into your business.
Like hire Fred. What?
April Simmons. How much subprime are you doing in the Horn organization?
Well, we do quite a bit, but there's different layers of subprime. And I think that's one thing that we need to discuss here first too, because how you approach each area is actually different. You have to have a different game plan for each area. So for instance, you have your new car franchise stores. They all deal with a certain level of subprime. There's a certain amount that they can handle. Some of that's going to be your first time buyers, which is another major area that we forget about a lot of times when we talk subprime. We think people who just have, credit challenges. But what about the people who just graduated college, who just don't have much credit or don't have, a long job history or these sort of things? They also fall into that same type of category. So for instance, I pretty much every single person who knows me, if their kid is buying their first car, they send them to me 100%. Why? One word that Fred said, educate. I sit down with them. We don't look at a single car without me taking about an hour of their time to explain to them how credit works, what they need to be looking at, what debt to income means, what, credit cards are, these type of things, why they can't afford maybe the $800 car payment that they thought they could afford when they came in.
Right.
Now, just all of the things. I spent about an hour educating them before we look at a single car. And I set them up so that when I do get them landed on the right opportunity car, which may not be the car they want, but the car that will get them started properly, they understand their path to come back in 2 years and upgrade and move forward. So that's one type of customer. Then you have the customers who've had challenges. Some by their own unknowing, some by circumstance. And I'm sorry, but we are so mean to people like, oh, sorry, especially at new car franchise stores.
Right. Like,
Can't
Did
help them.
anybody call him back? Nah.
Yeah, shake their hand, get them out of here. Well, how many of these people have dealt with cancer or, been on the brink of bankruptcy or went ahead and went through bankruptcy, that we just need to take the time to have empathy for them and then educate them. And when you do, and I will tell you, I have sat down and done monthly budgets and conversations with people through the years. They are the most loyal customers. I mean, I have people that hunt me down no matter what I'm selling. If I'm selling, Saturns tomorrow, like they're going to buy Saturn. Like it doesn't even matter, just because
now you are taking me back to the last.
Yeah, so
Right? I'm like, oh damn, Saturn. All right, I got you, girl. I remember that.
Come up those levels, right? So you can help move them forward and help them be prepared better for the future and get what they want. And you help them on so many levels. They're forever thankful. They send you all their friends and family. Then you have your next level of people. So we do have 2 stores that are used car only facilities. They also have buy here, pay here at both of them. That falls into a whole nother category of consumer because now you're taking on your own internal collections. You're taking on a whole nother level of aspect, and it is a different customer. That is the customer where you go, okay, you get 3 choices, and that's just for now. And again, even with buy here, pay here, if you take the time to say, look, I am sorry that this is where we're at, but what can we do to help you get to the other side? Yeah. They're the ones that call you and say, hey, I'm going to be late on my payment this month. What can I do? How can I help? You're not chasing them. If you really, truly have empathy for people's situations, you can absolutely do an amazing job. And it's a large percentage of our business today. And like everyone has already said, it will continue to grow because it's just what happens. It's part of the cycle. And we all know over what's happened the last couple of years, the cycle is about to come the other direction.
Hey.
Well, go ahead. I want to say 2 things off of what April had just said. So first and foremost, I love it. I wish somebody would have talked to me as an 18-year-old, poor kid who goes to college, got credit cards. I wish somebody would have, I'd be a gajillionaire by now if I had had that education, right? So great opportunity there to really make a difference. It's about the ripple sometimes, that ripple effect that you have in your communities. I always used to use the dream home, right? You're not going to buy your dream home the first time. So I know you really want this Camaro because it's your dream car. But let's talk about your starter home. I can help you with your starter home, and then we'll get you into that dream car eventually. But like if you guys are sitting here thinking, watching this live or on a playback and saying, oh, yeah, it's too much work. Let me just remind you that we are about to have a huge crash in used car values. So if you would like to be able to protect some of this profit that you've been circumstantially given over the last 2 years, you have to put a subprime strategy into place that will help to offset losses in your used car department.
100%.
Sorry.
100%. Wouldn't it be great if what April said that she talks to actual buyers about, if all finance managers got that education as well? Especially when transferring markets, because like Fred and I have had this conversation a lot, but I can't tell you how many finance managers don't actually know how to read credit and how the bureau approvals work and how credit is bucketed within those bureaus. And that's not an easy thing to learn. It's not something that's often taught anymore. So I would love to see that education go all the way around.
Yeah.
Great. I love
That's exactly right.
Blows my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And listen, guys, I'm not big on empathy, right? Because I just
we know.
Russian.
He's Russian.
So, right. I have really
not really Russian, guys.
Thank you.
Right. I have like.
Well, you're big on profitability, right, Max?
So listen, it's not about empathy. What happens is that because the art of hanging paper is a lost art, you have clueless people in a dealership that basically tell the sales manager, just get him out, right? Because they can read credit. They can tell them what car to show, right? So it's not empathy, it's lack of training, right? First, we need to focus on training and get these finance managers to really understand how it works. And I got to tell you, especially if you work in a Honda or Toyota, guys, I mean, if you have a pulse and you can plug up a mirror, right, you will drive, right? These captive banks are really supporting dealers, right? You just have to just understand a little bit how to structure your deal in a way that it's attractive to the bank.
Hey,
And like,
it's
flip with your
100%
buyer.
right.
What are you people doing? Was it just us women in finance who could do that? Because if you got a
Right.
good relationship with
At
your
the
buyer, I
end of
mean,
the day, you know,
throw it
Matt's
out
really
there.
good at that too. No, I love it.
You know what I'm saying?
almost,
Let's get real here.
almost every week here, you know, I say the same thing, that until we get finance managers to be licensed, there will be collateral damage. And in case of subprime, the collateral damage is human lives, right? When you put the person in the wrong car and they do go repo, right? That's the collateral damage I'm talking about. You know, these are
That
very
sounds really empathetic to me, Max.
no, but
I was gonna say, but not say.
right. But I'm just saying that it's the
just
training
like-
and licensing.
Are we making Max a better human?
But I'm just saying, it's the
I
training
think he's
and
speaking from a
licensing here.
profitability standpoint.
Training and licensing is the ultimate key. And unless we get this done nationwide, there will always be issues associated with subprime, because it's really easy to finance somebody with an 800 credit score. You don't
Right.
even need a finance manager. You know,
Yeah.
a kiosk will do the job.
I agree.
You know, so this is where the focus needs to be, whether it's NADA, whether it's state dealer associations. But I always say the same thing, right? If you want to be a barber in New York City, you need to be licensed. But if you want to be a finance manager in New York City, you can start today. No training, nothing.
Right. And one, if you mess it up, will be fixed in 2 weeks. The other one
That's right.
may never be.
Right.
Because it's a rare occurrence that Max and I agree on something.
Somebody asked a question: who teaches reading of bureaus for car sales? A solid trainer does. I can tell you, I've worked with a lot of finance trainers. I won't say I've worked with all of them, but I've worked with a lot of them. Ziegler's program does. Fred comes and does. We have mutual clients, and I've watched him do it. We've talked about the importance of it. If you are hiring a trainer for your store or sending somebody to training and that is not a part of the docket and you are not certain that the scope of work includes that and that they know what they're doing, you're wasting your time. I can teach anybody how to sell a product. Anybody can teach anybody how to sell a product or how to sell air. An intangible versus a tangible is not hard, with some charisma and a solid option. But reading a credit bureau is an art form, and it's one that's been lost over the years.
So dealers, here's a helpful tip. Because a lot of different aftermarket companies that you work with are going to push product sales training. We actually had a show about this recently because I thought I had lost my mind and hit my head. And they're like, no, the sales managers know how to read the bureaus. The finance managers don't. And I was like, what twilight zone did I fall into? Your finance manager is
Jennifer, was it something you said? Jim is gone.
She's going off.
Yeah.
But it's like it is maybe because I was going to say, like, make sure when you, and Bobby's talking about trainers, but a lot of times the dealer thinks they have a finance trainer because the person who is doing their aftermarket, their warranties, their service contracts is offering a school for your finance manager.
Of course they are, people.
But in
Why
that
do people
school-
stumble over this stuff? Come on.
Yeah,
But listen,
well,
guys,
because
I
a lot
think
of
it's
people
much
don't know.
easier. It's much easier. You don't need a trainer at all. Why don't you just call the credit bureau and ask them to provide the codes? So when you look at the bureau, you can actually decode it. That's the first
This is why Jim left, because I'm just a
educate.
really good guy.
Educate.
You
know?
only know what you know. So you don't know to call and ask for the codes if
Right.
you don't know that those are even a thing. Just like I walk into a store and I ask, this is what I ask every finance manager in the beginning, to blow your mind how simple this is, people. Walk into the finance manager's office right now, and if you're a finance manager, I want you to do the same thing with yourself. Just be real easy. Let's say I pull bureaus for a customer, I pull all three, and the Equifax is the highest and it's running at 682. Everything else is a 70-point drop. And I walk in your office and I say, who can I have pull Equifax as a secondary that didn't pull it as the first with a 127 LTV? If you cannot tell me the answer to that question off the top of your head, you are not a finance manager. You know how to push buttons and get green and red.
How do you teach your
That's
clients?
not just reading bureaus. That's actually understanding bank programs, which is a huge,
Correct.
the hugest part of all that. So having a great skill set of understanding bureaus is, yes, a must, no doubt. and it's very teachable, and it's very something that you know, if you see it enough, you look at it enough, you will get better at it. Yes, 100%. But understanding those bank programs and where to send the banks with the right structure, the correct structure that you know that a bank's going to be like, well, that's enticing, right? But also
like a little dance with it.
Right. You know, it's enticing, right? You got to do all those things, right? You got to be good at that, but not just that, but loading your salespeople's lips on how to get more down payment, not just tell them, oh, you only got 500, how to ask them to get more, how to find more, what they can do to get it. Maybe finding that cosigner that can actually save them a couple $100 a month, but actually educating the customer too, and telling them how to say the things to their parents, to their grandparents, without not just saying, I need a cosigner. Why? Because they said I need one. No, I need a cosigner because I just started my credit and I got a good job. I have everything except for time in bureau. And if I could find somebody with some good time in bureau, I can get my credit rolling and I can do it and save myself a couple $100 a month. Would you do that for me, Grandma? Guess what the answer is going to be on that most of the time? Yes.
And I almost said yes, and I don't have any grandkids.
And look, if you're a finance manager listening, let me pro tip this for you. If you get him to get grandma to say yes to signing the loan, credit life shouldn't be a problem. And Max, I want to hear how credit life isn't a thing, because something happens to the grandson. You need to protect grandma.
But listen, guys, let's get real, okay? When the grandma says yes, we're not co-signing. It's a straw purchase.
We would never do that because we're licensed professionals,
Okay,
Max.
sure.
Never.
Sure.
Never.
I didn't go to barber school. We would
I have
never
a
do that.
question.
Go for it.
Wait.
Matt, I have a question for Matt. So many dealers right now, especially new franchise dealers, are not participating in Subprime at all, right? They're just kind of, they don't need to because they're just kind of kicking those customers out. Right. Tomorrow they're going to need to. What are the top few things that you would say if somebody's starting in Subprime tomorrow that they need to do to be prepared?
So the key to running, a successful subprime campaign or subprime department is really to incorporate that into just how you do business. I would not recommend having a subprime department, having that separate from your retail side. Your desk managers need to know, like, I don't have finance guys. All right. We sell, between 200 and 250 cars a month. I don't have finance managers in my store. I've got desk guys that are extremely high level trained, know how to read a bureau, know all the bank programs. So the people that work in the finance department are, help to get deals funded. They sign them up, they collect, stips, things like that. But I think that, it comes down to your personnel, who you're going to put in there. If you've got a guy that's been sitting on a desk at a Lincoln store, for the last 20 years, he's going to be tough to, that's going to be a tough one. So I would look for the guys or the people that, deal with all kinds of credit, every day. The other thing to remember too, as far as like reading bureaus, I agree with everything that you guys said. I mean, you need to know what you're looking at, but the truth of the matter is that if you've got a 540 Beacon, or a 580, whatever, and they're looking for a vehicle, none of these banks have look to book. They don't have look to book for a reason. They want to look at everything. So, I'm not telling you send them to 15 banks, if you know what you're doing, but you definitely don't want to, I don't know how many times have you sent an application in and you're like, oh my God, I can't even believe this bank bought this deal.
Right.
Well, not only am I seeing that more and more, but I'm seeing they're like one lender who I know, probably has a 2% chance of buying this deal. Everyone else has turned it down. They're the ones who did it. So had I, let my ego get in the way, or, what I thought, because I know so much about, subprime and credit, that I wouldn't even send it to this 2% chance, I wouldn't have had that deal. So I don't, and I don't really look at it from, me, myself, I wouldn't have that deal. My salesperson wouldn't have that deal. And most importantly, that customer would still be walking.
Right.
So yeah. So
it's not as important to be able to read a bureau as to interpret a bureau.
Right.
Yeah. There you go.
Right.
Oh, right. Same.
Now, see, that's the thing. Jennifer, you've been to my F&I school. Max, you've been to my F&I school. How much of my F&I school was interviewing the customer and getting the hard to get put together deals put together?
Yeah, I mean, that character statement was, I mean, that was, what did we do? There was 2 classes on just that part with the interview. You have to know what you're working with, and it is important to be able to interpret and know your programs, right? You can't just rely on Route 1 or Dealer Track to shotgun stuff places.
Right.
Yep.
And most importantly, pick up the phone.
Pick up the phone.
Right?
And
Hey.
call the
So cool.
buyer. If you've got to go to work, go to work.
Right.
Your buyer
Well, you
and
know,
your
it's
funder.
amazing.
Best friends.
People
Be
were
best
asking how to read a bureau. You can call CBI Equifax or Trans. You could call
True.
any of these bureaus. They will send a nice lady or man out to your dealership. They'll even bring
They will.
donuts and do a whole PowerPoint presentation in a meeting on how to read credit bureaus.
Right.
I mean, you don't need to try to figure out how to read a credit bureau.
Just ask.
Now, Fred, do you know what an RSDT is?
An RSDT. I actually know you got me on that one, my friend.
RSDT is when you're pulling a CBI Equifax and it reads end of report. You can put RSDT and some symbols in and get additional information on that credit bureau.
It's like a cheat code.
I mean, I can read a credit bureau probably better than 90 million% of the other people. And I have had those classes. It behooves you to call the credit bureau, have them come out, even subprime dealers, and get a class on how to read the bureau and get additional information. I can pull a 20-year credit bureau on people. And people are like,
wow.
how do you do that? If they're financing more than $50,000, I can pull a 20-year credit bureau.
There's
Wow.
And
power
people
in
don't know how to
knowing
do that.
There's power
What?
in knowing how to read a bureau and how to read your programs. I can't tell you how many times I've accidentally fat fingered a submission to get it through the automated system to adjust it on the phone call with my best friend, the buyer later.
Right.
You know, but I was blessed in that because most of the people that don't know how to do this, it's because we failed them and we didn't teach them on a store
Right.
level. I started my finance career with Sonic Automotive and they didn't mess around. So I got lucky with being sent out to get training that isn't always available to people. So, you know, look, if you're listening, start there.
Right.
What kind of cars do you stock, Matt?
I stock all pre-owned. We're a pre-owned lot. And typically everything is going to be like 17 or newer, under 70,000 miles.
Do you have Highline vehicles on occasion?
I don't carry Highline vehicles. No.
Never.
You know, a Highline vehicle to me is going to be a truck that I've got, maybe 35 grand in.
That's a Highline vehicle. Yeah. When I was with Bourne Toyota as a consultant in the mid 90s, I sent the buyer to the auction and I said, I want a whole truckload of Plymouth Acclaims. we're at a Toyota store.
Yeah.
So the Toyota manager, he's going crazy. He said, we're a Toyota dealership. I said, we'll put them behind the fence. He said, Plymouth Acclaims. I said, every one you can buy.
Yep.
And we bought a truckload of Plymouth Acclaims because they were booking for $12,000 and we could buy them for $7,000.
Yeah.
Hey,
All day.
I mean, you're just seeing the profit immediately as soon as you buy those. All I see is dollar signs for every purchase, right? Like, hey, I just made this every time I bought one of those. Those were great days. There was a lot of unique times in subprime. You bring back the old when you could use look the book, not look the book, but the
Book.
Yeah, what was that when you can use the old book values of cars when you were getting a same year model? What was that called?
Oh, like invoice.
Like invoice. That's the word I was looking for.
Like invoice, yes.
Like invoice days, and you get that.
Centuries.
You'd buy the Buick Centuries or the XL7s or the Ford Tauruses.
Those days were great days, weren't they?
Yeah.
Unique and
John Palmer and I. You mentioned John Palmer. I partnered with him in the very beginning. He put a lot of my stuff into his Promax. That Promax was an incredible system. It would roll back every car in inventory and tell you what your profit was, how many days in inventory, everything about that car.
Yeah.
And it would show what lenders would do what. I mean, that was a genius program. What are you using now, Matt?
So as far as like my DMS is ACS. It's like the cheapest DMS that you can find. And as far as, managing the deal itself, we don't use software to do that. Everything is done kind of manually, especially now since we've gone to this model where we're letting customers actually select the vehicles that they're going to buy. So it's kind of taken away from, needing, I mean, everyone knows about the car that you've got, your $8,000 back of book in, so there's no question that, about everyone's trying to put everyone, all their customers on that car first. But short of that, everything's kind of the same, in line with book. I try to average things out from a cost standpoint, so I don't have salespeople walking around vehicles. I don't have an aged unit problem at my store. Right now we're turning about 105%. So I'm below a 30-day turn.
Yeah.
Which I'm not sure if that's great or not. But it's definitely a model that works for us. So
what kind of guarantees are you putting?
Wait, because we talk a lot about technology on the show, but what I hear you saying is you've actually built a structure and trained every member of your team to be able to do the work without software.
Correct. So when I come to work, it's a little bit different than probably the average. So when I come to work, I'm coming to support all the people that are there to sell cars. Everyone knows the processes that we have, and you don't have to be like a hammer closer, to be successful selling cars at our store. You have to be able to follow a process. We also don't have a BDC. So we have a ton of leads. That's the lifeblood of any dealership, any business really, but particularly
you have a ton of opportunities.
Yeah. So we have a ton of leads. We spend a lot of money to advertise the business. We generate a ton of leads. I do use a company that is a lead management system that is designed for a BDC to use, but my sales staff actually has access to all the leads, and they make 100% of the dials. So
what kind of guarantees do you put on the cars? Are you selling extended service contracts? Or
Yes.
Talk about that.
I know that any vehicle he has that has less than 100,000 miles,
yes,
they're guaranteed 3 months, 3,000 miles, no matter what. As long as it's 10 years or 100,000 miles or less. They do have a very aggressive extended warranty program there, and they definitely make sure their customers are taken care of. I worked for that group for a while, right? And seeing how the customers were treated, it was phenomenal. And customers, you can never have a customer that came back and really complained about their purchase, because it was always taken care of, always.
So we do. I mean, we're a dealer for the people, so I'm not like a if someone buys a car from me and their motor goes out, they've owned the vehicle for 3-4 months and their motor goes out or their transmission goes out, I'm just going to take care of it. I mean, I can't tell them no.
250 used cars in the subprime market.
Yeah.
Are you carrying any of your own paper?
No, we do not. Actually, it was we were doing a very little bit of buy here, pay here when I first started, and what I realized was that we didn't have the infrastructure to really grow that department, so I just did away with it.
What lenders do you rely on?
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask for your top 5.
Everybody's got Santander, and we know the usual suspects.
So Santander, subprime lenders kind of come in, they go up and down.
They do.
But I would say for probably this year, I'm averaging at one store, I'm averaging about 30 deals a month with regional. They have probably the most aggressive subprime, program that I've seen as far as advances go. I do a lot with Arrivo, Avid. I've been doing a lot with Avid, Prestige. We advertise for open bankruptcy, so we hang a lot of open BK paper. Which Arrivo's great because you don't need to wait on the trustee letter.
That's nice.
Yeah. I mean, it's a phenomenal program, and they take all 3 books.
Yep.
Just like Avid, Prestige. I do some with CPS. For the years prior, we were actually the number 1 Santander dealer in the state for probably 5 straight years.
Oh yeah.
We were doing probably 60 deals a month with them, and they just kind of dried up a little bit. So,
needs, they change. I actually started on the banking side, which kind of gave me, I think, a leg up in some of the stuff because I did get the education that so many people didn't get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But because of portfolio changes, that's why we see this ebb and flow and what
Right.
banks don't do. And one of the things that Matt pointed out was, that surprise click sometimes when you submit to a bank. So it's super important to know what your banks are doing, but it's also important to talk to your bankers and what their portfolio needs are, because they are going to need this month to buy business, then they're more than likely going to do things they wouldn't normally do. And now it's time to kind of click over to
100%.
So those conversations are kind of big and a big aspect and part of it. One of the things that I'm curious about, because I've always loved subprime because it's problem solving in every area, right? It's figuring out how to find the right car that'll fit the loan to value, that'll fit the down payment, that'll fit this customer, and then finding the bank that'll do it all. But acquisition is kind of a curious topic, I think, in subprime, especially for you, Matt, because you are doing only pre-owned.
Correct.
How are you going about getting all of these 250 cars that you're in them in a way that you can get the bank to buy them?
So that's a great question. That's, obviously been, here's what I can tell you, admittingly, I'm ashamed to say it, but it's just the sign of the, it's just how it is right now, the current climate. But I've been heavy in my cars for the last 2 years. And the last 2 years have probably been the most profitable that I've seen in 25 years. So I'm not as worried about equity positions because you're just not going to have that, especially in the cheaper cars. And when I say cheaper cars, I mean sub 16,000. You're just not going to have that kind of equity. So it's okay if you're a little heavy. So myself and one other guy buy 100% of the inventory for both stores. And when I'm buying a car, when I'm buying it, either at the auction or from Enterprise, I have a specific customer in mind. So I'm thinking about, this is the guy that makes $15 an hour, 560, maybe had a repo last year, and you just kind of like start putting vehicles in buckets that way. And then next thing you know, you've kind of bought your entire month worth of inventory with those exact customers in mind, because the credit for us hasn't changed in over 10 years. We have a very specific ideal client that we market to. So we're not trying to sell cars to everybody. Not that we won't. I'm not kicking a 700 Beacon off the lot, but that's not who I'm not advertising to the guy who's looking to save $200. Compared to the guy down the street.
That's a key right there, though, is the advertising portion of it. Like, as you're talking about, a lot of dealers who are not doing subprime or offering subprime options, especially in BK, are out advertising, especially on social media, towards a targeted market that's a blank canvas, and then they're bringing that in without the ability to actually
close
that customer, to close them, or to have the inventory for it.
Yeah. So I was there. I was consulting Click Lewis Chevrolet in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. This is in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and we put a full page ad in the Philadelphia Inquirer newspaper, and it said, "Victims of circumstance." That was the headline. If maybe situations beyond your control have caused you to have credit problems. At Click Lewis Chevrolet, we believe, here's the key line: everyone has the right to drive a new car. Don't drive junk. Don't drive junk. And we put a full-size GMAC credit app in the paper. We had to put a bus stop in front of the dealership. It just
Well, and honestly, I was pointing at my whiteboard because I actually have my buckets all lined out, because I have a client who is trying to build this up but doesn't have the team that can buy those cars. So I'm going to start buying them for him. Yeah. And so I boarded out all of the different buckets. And I think, one of the things, you don't need necessarily a full page ad to tie what Bobby and Jim just said together. If you know that your competition cannot help those people, but they're trying to bring them in, just drop a little geofencing pin on their dealership and be like, "Oh, tired of getting treated this way." Like,
Fred, the key word in that ad was "don't drive junk." Victims of circumstance. Everyone has the right to drive a better car.
Well, I will
Ooh.
say one of the things in my book, and I know y'all can't see the board over there, but when you are looking, because it is so competitive at auction right now, I'm actually looking for the units, and I have not just buckets for cost for purchase, but for my recon. Because if in order to be able to finance some of these customers, I have to be at a certain position, and I can't find those cars at auction.
Right.
So I have to make those cars.
Right.
I have to make sure that my service departments, and this is the problem a lot of A franchise dealers have. You have a franchise tax, and it's not cost conducive to be able to have them do work on these types of cars. And I think we've talked about this before. You know, one of the things that I did with the first group I worked for is we opened a separate subprime service center for our budget lots and our buy here, pay here, because I can have techs that I didn't have to pay as much per hour. I wasn't competing with CP and warranty for my franchise. I was able to, as I say, I've sat in every chair. I've never been a service manager, but I did start a service center from the ground up, so I'm not sure if that counts.
Probably qualifies you, yeah.
I would say so.
So, you got to think about these things too, folks.
Fred Lennartz, how can they call you?
Oh, simple. 321 Fred Lou. Really easy. Or
Yeah.
321.
That in
And
the
that's
comments,
slow
my
up.
Fred Lou. It's really
Okay.
that simple. Or you can
Okay.
call me on my direct line. It's 270.
Okay, what is 321 Fred Lou? What does it translate to?
Wow, that's, you know what? I don't even know.
It
that.
translates to 321-373-568. And we're going to talk about how difficult that was later, Fred. I'm adding that to the table.
Okay, hang on. 321-373-3568.
You know, we should pop that up for the audience. I know somebody else had also asked Jim if we could type the names of the banks that Matt had just mentioned. I mean, I kind of want that list too.
No, I don't know about
Pro
that. Maybe
tip, hit
Chelsea can
rewind.
get that on
There
the
you
show.
go. There's a lot of great banks out there. You know, it depends on your region. Some of these banks are not going to be in your state. You could always reach out to me. I can answer at which state they're going to be in. I've done all the research over the last year or so, just really get an idea of where all my clients can or cannot have subprime wise. And it's really a great place to be. If you want to increase your bottom line every month, get subprime get subprime finance working in your department. Get people understanding how to help people. If you want to just help people in your community and feel like that you're being fulfilled by watching people cry when they buy cars. I mean, literally just enjoy of just happiness. Like you're the only person that's ever said, "Hey, I can help you."
Yeah.
Be that person. Be a
Get a
subprime hero.
process in place, people, before you just dive right in. Have a conversation. Lou is watching. Lou, can you put your guys' cell phone numbers up there too, please?
I just did.
Oh, did you? I just saw the direct number come through.
We were talking about reconditioning. So on some of these vehicles, especially for franchise dealers, but any dealer really, if you don't want to like paint bumpers or fix, things that are going to cost you money and add to the ACV, just don't do it. Just have put a scratch and dent section on the lot.
Yes.
And actually have a sign that says scratch and dent.
It's not a new car.
Right.
It's a used car.
Are going to shop in that section.
Yes.
I mean, which one of you guys doesn't look at a clearance rack when you go to, whatever store you're going to shop, right? So you're going to look at the best deal.
On the website.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing is that, when you have a subprime customer, you can just let them know before you ever go outside. Hey, listen, I just want to let you know that our buyers look specifically for vehicles with minor cosmetic imperfections.
Right.
That we're able to secure financing for you at much better terms, lower payments, and low to no down payments.
Yeah, mechanically, this is going to get you back and forth to work.
Right.
It's actually, I was sitting in as an acting general manager recently, and I bought a 2015 Honda Fit. Had been hit in a hit and run, some back bumper damage on the driver's side quarter panel, but I bought it for $6,500.
Right.
Sold it for $12,900.
Yeah, I'd take 10 truckloads.
Like I paid $400 for the bumper guy to make it look a little bit or the dent guy to make it look a little bit prettier.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I'm like, "We're going to sell that car in 2 days."
Right.
And we did.
Yeah, and the idea is not to sell, to sell somebody a substandard car, but anymore, especially in today's climate, I mean, it's just you're not going to buy a 4.0 CR car, for $15,000 and put a 590 beacon in it. You're just not going to.
No, but it's
nobody builds a bad car anymore.
Right.
Nobody builds a bad car.
That's,
right,
that's a
Jim.
great comment to say. And we need to say that loud, is that all cars are great out there right now. They are backed by, I mean, so many things, and trust and believe that you're getting something nice. It just, like he said, a scratch or a dent, it's, if you can save tons of money by doing that and not pay over what they're worth, come on. It's the only way you can do it.
100,000 miles is not a deterrent either.
To finance, you can offer them to finance on the side to get those things fixed after the fact.
Yes.
So there's other ways that you can do that. Say, hey, this is what it looks like now, and this is how we can get it done with the bank.
Right.
But now, if you want to get that bumper fixed, you know, it's $1,000. We can work with you, and we can work with the vendor to get that accomplished. So there's a lot of opportunity out there in subprime for what I would call the, you know, accessory area, where we can actually help make these cars nicer for these people during that time as well.
I think Dignify is a good company to use for stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Let me jump in as we get down to the last couple of minutes today.
Yeah.
All right.
First of all, Fred Lennartz, your company, Subprime Hero, you and Lou Ramirez, Will you actually come to a dealership and help people do this?
Absolutely, that's what we do, and we have the privilege of doing it for a bunch of dealerships right now. Absolutely, we're always excited, you know. And then if we get a chance to help make an impact in your community, and that's what it really does. We're pumped up. We want to do it. We want to spread the message of the certified solution.
You can help people to get into the subprime business, teach their people, educate them the right way. Everything about purchasing inventory, what lenders to line up. You and Lou and your company can do this for these people. Is that right?
100% we can, you know, and then and if I don't know the answer, I know people who do. I know a lot of smart guys out there that do it every single day and have done it from ground up. So it's definitely in my wheelhouse 100%. I believe that I can really, really make a huge impact at your store. And if you need some subprime help, there's no doubt about it in my mind. And you'd be silly not to call out and at least get a conversation.
If you need prime help, don't limit yourself, Fred, to just subprime. You have a whole dealer audience listening.
Matt doesn't just know subprime. His store does about 70 to 80% subprime. There's about a 20 to 30% swing. It just depends, but it's about that much prime. So he's skilled in all of it, and so am I. I definitely have that kind of background myself. I understand it all. Like you said earlier, I can get 800. It's like I don't even need to submit it. Just put it over here and then go sell the car. When you get back, I'll know exactly where it's going. It's simple. But when you have somebody who's a 560 to a, you know, even a 680 these days in some cases, right? So you really look at that and you try to figure out where to put them and how they're going to land. Yeah, I can probably figure it out, but like we've been said, there's been times we've been wrong. So it's our jobs to just at least be educated enough to have a good guess at it, and then allow the banks to tell us yes or no, and not us be the ones telling a person, well, you can't buy. No. Let the lenders figure that out for you. All right. So make that happen, my friends.
And the last thing that I would ever advise anybody also is that if you have a credit app and the customer has the ability to make a payment,
that's it.
Submit them to a bank.
If they have the ability.
Don't make a credit decision.
Seriously, you are not the bank.
You're missing a ton of business. You're missing. Not to mention, it's actually against the law to do that because they're not applying.
That's my biggest frustration in a store.
Right.
You are not a bank.
There are four types of special finance lenders, and Matt mentioned earlier that they go up and down. You have to understand, it's in my book, but there are portfolio lenders, there are actual banks, there are finance companies, and there are brokers.
Right.
And you have to figure out which one you're dealing with. A portfolio lender, they'll go to Chicago Exchange and they'll raise funds backed by investors. Let's say they raise $20 million. They come back and all of a sudden this guy is hot. They're buying everything we send to them, and then all of a sudden they stop.
They spend all the money.
Have you been there? Have you been there, Matt?
Oh yeah, most definitely. Yep.
You know, that's a portfolio lender. They get a portfolio of money. They go to Chicago Exchange or one of the big exchanges. They raise the investment funds, $30 million. They come back and loan it out, and now they're out of money. They got to go.
That's all in your book, right, Jim?
It's all in my book.
That's all in your book.
It is. I'll tell you,
my book.
A great way to predict how lenders are going to be buying, especially in subprime, is just watch the unemployment rate. The unemployment rate goes up, they shut it off. Even if it's just trending up barely, that's when the faucets get shut off. So as unemployment goes down, the banks start buying. So I mean, that's
if you're in prime finance, that would be Wells Fargo.
I used to be my favorite buyer about 15 years ago.
They get in and out.
We love
This
Wells.
has been one heck of a broadcast. We're down to the end of it. I've got Fred. His middle name, Subprime Hero. Subprime is his middle name on his birth certificate. I mean, and Matt Damos from the name of your dealership?
Budget Car Sales.
Budget Car Sales. How could I forget that? Are you affiliated with Budget Rentals?
Yes. Budget Car Sales and Rentals. That's us. Yes.
Okay, fantastic. And of course, we got the regular Dog Pound Posse here, and we'll be back next week with another obnoxious subject. But this was really great. Everybody wave goodbye to the audience.